So how did the Wallabies come through and put in such a dominant performance after going 22 points down within the first 18 minutes? How did they manage to beat the Springboks, who have been so dominant? I want to try and answer this question in this video, and I want to hear what your thoughts are and where do you think the turning point was. So please like, subscribe. It really does help the channel grow, and let's get into it. Now, the Springboks, they imploded like there was no tomorrow. Like 22 points up in the first 18 minutes, and then things just started to go down south. Now, whether it was down to Siya Kolisi or whether it's down to Mark van Staden, having little knocks, whether it was from Damian Willemse making ridiculous decisions, whether it was Mani Libok deciding to pass to Suaalii. An intercepted pass, but you get what I mean. Or whether it was Afelele Fassi, who just wasn't there defensively. Andres Reisen had a very sketchy game. These are all different questions and all different possibilities. But to me, it comes down to the fact of the Wallabies were fantastic. They were absolutely fantastic. They really pulled their socks up and they started to make the most out of every single opportunity. We started to see Len Ikitau. We started to see Joseph-Aukuso Suaalii really start to get into the swing of things. They started to make the most out of any little slip up that ended up happening. As an example, we look at I believe it was Tom Wright's try, which was, I believe, was the last try of the game, where the ball was fumbled. He was on it. He was aware, and he managed to get hold of it. And lo and behold, down the wings, he was completely free. He was open, and then he did the little shimmy, and I forget who it was. Was it Willemse who he skinned? But Tom Wright did a little step fade in through the try line, right? And this kind of summed up how the game was. Max Jorgensen, I don't think he gets enough praise. The guy is absolutely phenomenal. He keeps performing time and time again, and I'm a very, very big supporter of him. So he's definitely one for the future. He's one for now, and he's one of these players that really put the Springboks to the sword. But how they actually managed to beat the Springboks is they started to play expansive rugby. They started to play out wide. They started to move the ball out quickly. And this is one of the things where kicking comes so important into this game, because the Wallabies, they played a very deep line, right? They allowed themselves to run on into the ball. They found themselves in a good amount of space, and the Springboks they became very unorganized. They started to leave unnecessary space. Their defensive line wasn't working as a unit. They started to work as individuals, and this is where the Wallabies really started to take effect, as the Suaalii try. Well, yeah, it was a Suaalii try where you see all that space. They were either too clumped, they were far too spread, and someone like Suaalii is going to make the most out of this. He saw that coming from a mile away, right? And obviously, him being 6'4", 6'5", he was able to intercept relatively easily. But this showed how the Springboks were playing. They were making mistake after mistake. They became very unorganized. Defensively, Afelele Fassi was horrible. Andres Reisen, he didn't exactly have the best best of games. Jesse Creel tried his absolute best, but he wasn't able to shift. And yeah, things just were not going. I say things were not going the Springboks' way. They just seem to have lost the fight, which is something that you always tend to expect from the Springboks. They lost their style. They lost that scrum. They lost that imposing physicality. They started to play the Aussies game. They started to play out wide. They started to, try and play quick ball. They don't do that. It just felt like the Wallabies ended up forcing the Springboks to play their game, which not many teams are able to do, and they did it brilliantly. They did it fantastically. So we look at how the game shifted, especially in the second half. Siya Kolisi went off early. Obviously, Siya Kolisi is a big player. I think he did have a little issue with his knee. Marco van Staden as well. These are big players, but we did see a shift, specifically when Marco van Staden came through. And Fraser McWright, he really started to put the pressure on the Springboks. They really started to put the pressure on the Springboks, and he performed perfectly. He did the job above and beyond as to what you want. They were beating the Boks at the breakdown. They were finding all of those little inches and making the most out of it. Harry Wilson. How often do you see Harry Wilson be left open in the space that he is left that he was left open? It's not even like he was the fastest player on the pitch either. So it's not even like, oh, he was, he had the pace to burn. He doesn't. Where did he find that space coming from? Right now, the Boks, they tried to counteract the kicking game. They ended up leaving players in the back, but ultimately that ended up leaving space for the Wallabies to run into. We saw Dylan Pietsch, unfortunate for Dylan Pietsch, but we saw how he started to utilize that. We started to see how Max Jorgensen utilized it so brilliantly. But at times it really did feel like the Wallabies were running with butter on them. The Springboks couldn't match them, right? They had the energy, they had the momentum. The Springboks lost all of their momentum. They started to crumble, which is quite unnerving. It's not unnerving. It's you don't see it happen. Normally, the Springboks are one of the best and most well-drilled teams, especially defensively, in world rugby. This was a first. It really was a first. Not only, I think it was the first loss in 60 years at Ellis Park for the Wallabies, up against the Wallabies. The first win in something like 10 years for the Wallabies. They have done brilliantly. But you know what? It goes further than that. It goes down to their grassroots levels. It goes down to where they were in 2017, 2018, 2019. A lot of the young prospects building, showing their game, slow build. The Aussies have been struggling for a lot of consistent quality, and we are now starting to see that pop through. I do feel Schmidt leaving after the performances that have been put in up against the Lions, after the performance that we've seen with the Springboks, is a mistake. I believe he's going to be leaving at the end or middle of next year. So the Wallabies do still have a little bit of time with Schmidt to really build, to have a lot of these players come through, have players like Max Jorgensen really start to develop, Liner really start to develop. They've got a lot of serious talent on their books that they're just kind of waiting to break through. So how it's going to be once Schmidt leaves, because the guy tactically is brilliant. Yes, he likes to moan and he likes to whine, and he gets away with a little bit in here, but it is what it is. You look at the performances that were put on the pitch. You look at what he managed to bring out of the players, and the players' mental fortitude to come through and put over 38 points on the Springboks, which is damn near enough unheard of in the style of fashion that they did it. So the Wallabies not only rallied, they managed to score tries like it was nothing. They took advantage of the South African frailties, which I know Rassie is going to be looking at, and he's going to be isolating every single incident down individually to fix it. We're going to see a completely different team. We are going to be seeing Damian Dialende. We are going to be seeing Cheslin Colby back in the starting lineup. Edouard van der Merwe had a horrible game. I can't see them dropping Arendse, but if they do, Kanan Moody will be getting a start. I think he deserves a start. So we could potentially even see a 11 Moody, 14 Colby, but that's for another video. The Wallabies, fantastic. If the Wallabies are able to continue to perform like this, it's going to make the next manager, I forget his name, I think it's Love. I forget his name now. It's going to make his life a lot easier, 100%, but it's also going to mean a shift in tactics. So there's going to be a lot of change, and hopefully that's not going to disrupt their rhythm going forward. So, guys, this is my last video on the Springboks and the Wallabies. What are your thoughts, and where do you think this game was won? Because for me, it was at that breakdown, and they did phenomenally. Please like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.